So some design trends look stunning in photos. They're minimalist, modern, and completely luxurious. But once you try living with them, the cracks start to show, both literally and figuratively. Because just because something's viral on Instagram doesn't mean it's livable in real life. And so today, I'm breaking down popular design trends that seem smart until they aren't. And for each one, I'm going to also show you smarter alternatives so you still get the look you're looking for without the regret. So the first trend I want to talk about is the open concept bathroom, or as I like to call it, the no door toilet. So this open concept bathroom removes the physical separation between the bedroom and the bathroom, often leaving the toilet fully visible or just slightly concealed behind a partition with no actual door. And it's super popular in ultra minimalist or boutique hotel style homes where designers are prioritizing flow and openness over functionality and privacy. Now, if you can't already see the problems with this, let me lay out a few of them for you. First is you lose the basic ability to separate private functions from a shared space. And so even the closest couples end up feeling awkward and interrupted. Because let's be honest, no one wants to use the toilet within view or within earshot of someone who's lying in bed. But it's not just about the toilet, it's the entire bathroom experience. So whether you're flushing, brushing, or just showering, all of that noise carries out into the bedroom. And so there's no sound barrier, which means no peace, especially if you've got different sleep schedules. So this completely breaks down the restful vibe that most people want out of their bedroom. But that's really only the beginning, because humidity and odors have no boundaries. And so steam and all sorts of smells travel freely into the sleeping area. And even if you've got excellent ventilation, moisture buildup can cause long-term problems like mold in your bedroom, which is something you really don't want to have. And so this is truly just a design flex, but not a livable one at all. It looks like a spa in magazines, but this gets old really fast in real life. And if you look through any of the interior design subreddits, you'll find that they're full of posts from homeowners who tried an open concept bathroom and regretted it almost immediately. And I promise you, the novelty fades the first time that someone has to awkwardly wait for you to finish using the bathroom. But getting a little bit more tangible here, open concept bathrooms are really polarizing, and polarizing designs hurt your resale value. Most buyers who might buy your home are going to see this as a flaw, not as a feature, and they assume that they'll have to renovate to get things into a state where they actually want to live. And so even though you might think that having an open concept bathroom will boost the designer influence of your home, what it actually does is it severely limits the pool of buyers who are interested in your home, which is going to tank the home's value. And if all that isn't enough, another thing to keep in mind is that when there's no door, there's no heat containment. So after a shower, cold air is going to rush into the space, which makes it pretty uncomfortable pretty fast. Not many of us like stepping out of a hot shower into a significantly colder room, but without a door, that is going to happen pretty consistently. So instead of the completely open concept bathroom, what should you do instead? In my view, go with frosted glass or fluted panels. They both give you the light, airy feeling of an open layout, but they also give you visual privacy. And having floor-to-ceiling glass dividers in a frosted or reeded finish will feel high-end and functional at the same time. Alright, so the second trend on the list here is barn doors. These were once the darling of modern farmhouse design because they offer rustic charm, they save some floor space, and they add a bit of a custom feel to your interiors. And so from bedrooms to closets to offices, these sliding barn doors became a go-to aesthetic feature. But when the novelty of them wears off, the reality sets in. And that reality is that barn doors are often form over function. So let's get into what that actually means. First, barn doors don't sit flush against the wall, so there's always a little bit of a gap, and that means that sounds, smells, and even light can leak through pretty easily. And this is especially bad for bathrooms and bedrooms where privacy really matters. And even upscale or more premium versions of barn doors don't match the seal of a regular door with a latch. But it's not just bathrooms and bedrooms where barn doors aren't a great fit. They're also a pretty poor fit for spaces where you need any sort of acoustic or visual separation. Now, barn doors are often sold on the promise of saving space, but the reality is they actually take up quite a bit of space themselves, because you need clear space on one or both sides of the door opening for the door to be able to slide. And so that means that stretch of wall becomes completely unusable. You can't have picture frames, light switches, or any sort of shelving. And so in small homes or tight hallways, this can really limit your layout options and the entire functionality of the space. Barn doors are also weak on security. They don't lock properly and they might slide shut, but they're also really easy to push open. And even with additional latches, they're definitely not as secure as a traditional door. And so that makes them a bad choice for entryways, home offices, or rooms that need any sort of real privacy. And then they're noisy and hard to maintain. Depending on the hardware you use, barn doors can often rattle or squeak as they move. The tracks get misaligned, the rollers wear down, and the whole system can start to feel clunky. And I actually experienced this myself in my previous apartment. I had a barn door as the bathroom door, and I experienced all of the downsides that I just mentioned, but when there was a flood in the apartment upstairs, it meant that all the hardware of the barn door got rusted and the entire unit had to be completely replaced. If this was just a typical door, it would have been much easier to replace, or might not have needed replacing at all. But because the track was so high up, and the water that leaked down hit it first, it got completely rusted, and both the track, the door, and all the other components had to be replaced, which was not a costly fix. So what should you do instead here? Well, one option is to use pocket doors instead of barn doors. Pocket doors go inside the wall, while barn doors sit outside of the wall, which means that when you have pocket doors, it's a space-saving option that still seals properly, but you can also use that wall space for shelving or any other sort of display. Or if you're really just looking for a door that's visually striking, you can go with pivot doors or French doors if you want something that's more functional. Alright, so trend number 3 here is black countertops. And so these black countertops, whether they're granite, quartz, marble, or just any other solid surface, they've become a go-to for moody and modern kitchens. They're often paired with white cabinets, gold hardware, or wood textures for a sleek and high contrast look. And on Instagram and on showroom floors, they look really high-end and dramatic. But in real life, they can be surprisingly difficult to live with. And maybe the biggest reason for that is that there's constant cleaning required, because black shows everything from fingerprints to crumbs, dust, water spots, grease streaks, you name it, it's on there. And even polished finishes need frequent wiping in order to look good. And then matte finishes are even worse because they smudge easily and they can be hard to clean without leaving streaks. And on top of that, scratches and damage are obvious on black countertops. The minor chips, scratches, and scuffs stand out pretty starkly on black surfaces. And so dark stone or laminate may hide some things, but matte black quartz, every flaw is completely visible. And so even daily wear from plates, pans, and cleaning can leave marks over time. But then you also need to think about the color itself, because solid black without any sort of veining or variation can feel really plasticky in cheaper quartz or laminate. And so instead of a dramatic look, it can actually come across as flat or unfinished, especially under warm lighting. Plus, on top of that, stone that lacks natural patterning doesn't age well visually. And at the same time, this trend is already kind of over. Black countertops peaked with the modern farmhouse boom, and now they're being replaced by softer, warmer neutrals and more natural looking surfaces. So if you're renovating to sell or you want something that'll last a long time, pure black is going to feel outdated pretty quickly. So if you're replacing your countertops, what should you do instead? Go for a lightly veined or textured stone. So I'm talking white, cream, or even taupe quartz with soft veining hides the wear better, and it just feels a lot more timeless. Alright, so trend number 4 is the wall of mirrors. I'm sure you've seen this all over the place, but the first big problem with it is that it reflects everything good and bad. Unlike a framed mirror, which reflects the room intentionally, a wall of mirrors reflects cords, clutter, weird angles, and even toilets if they're placed in the wrong spot. So you don't get any visual control, just a copy paste of whatever's sitting in front of it. And even though you may be seeing this across Instagram or Pinterest, most people today associate a wall of mirrors with outdated decor, not with luxury. It's one of the first things to go during renovations, especially for resale homes, because frankly, the trend is just stuck in another decade. And a wall of mirrors also kills the functionality of that wall. You can't mount art, light, or shelves, and even placing furniture in front of it looks pretty awkward. So the whole wall becomes off limits for practical use. And you know what the first thing most people think of when they see an entire wall of mirrors? A gym. And so having that in your home can make it feel more like a dance studio or a fitness center than your living room or wherever else you have this hideous wall. And especially in bedrooms or places like a dining room, this is really cold and impersonal and not cozy or inviting at all. Plus, having all those mirrors is pretty high maintenance. They smudge constantly, dust and fingerprints show on them all the time, and if one panel cracks or starts to get warped, then replacing it is expensive and pretty difficult, especially if it's glued directly onto drywall. And so the obvious change to make here is to swap the wall of mirrors for just one large framed mirror placed intentionally. You still get all the light bounce and the sense of space, but you've also got way more control over what's reflected. And so hang it or just leave it leaning against a wall in a place where it catches a window, a piece of art, or soft lighting, not all the random clutter that collects in your space. Now, the next trend to stay away from here are floating staircases without railings. These have become popular in modern, high design homes, and especially in open concept spaces where sightlines and aesthetics are prioritized over functionality. But the big and obvious risk here is one of safety. No railing means no fall protection for kids, for adults, for pets, or even for furniture that's being carried upstairs. And so one small slip on these stairs can result in a pretty dangerous fall, especially if the individual steps are narrow or a little bit slippery. And so the reality is, while these definitely look cool in photos, most people don't actually enjoy using them daily. They can feel a little bit disorienting, especially at night or for anyone with balance issues. And because the underside of each step is fully exposed, dust and cobwebs can build up pretty easily, and then smudges, scuffs, and just general wear on each step is pretty noticeable from a bunch of different angles. But it's not just about the stairs themselves, because unlike traditional staircases which have closets or enclosed sides beneath them, these open staircases offer zero storage options. And so in family homes, that wasted space actually matters quite a lot, and the open gap underneath them is a hazard zone for crawling kids and excited pets. And as I mentioned with the open concept bathroom, potential buyers of your home may view an open concept staircase as unsafe, cold, or impractical, which might mean that the value of your home drops. So what should you do instead? Well, you can opt for open riser stairs with side-mounted supports like you see in this image, which gives you that floating effect, but also has more structural integrity and a more anchored feel. You can also use ultra-slim glass balustrades like in this image to maintain the minimalism without sacrificing safety. The glass disappears visually, but it still provides essential fall protection. Or you could also incorporate steel cable or tension wire systems like you see in this image. These create a modern architectural look, they meet building code, and they help guide movement on the staircase, especially in multi-level, high-traffic homes. So whichever style you choose, stick with wide, grippy stairs. So here's the conclusion to all this. Design isn't just about aesthetics, it's about how you actually use your space. And many of these trends look really good in magazines, but fail the test of daily life. And at the end of the day, good design should support your lifestyle, not make it more difficult. So before following a new trend you find online, ask yourself this one key question. Will this space still feel good after a year of living in it? If the answer is yes, go for it. But if you're not really sure, then you should probably take a deeper dive to understand what you're actually getting yourself into. Anyway, I hope this quick deep dive into a couple popular trends has been helpful for you, and if you like this video, I think you'll probably like this one up here. I'll see you there.